morning or evening, dear friends, wherever you are, on this beautiful, wondrous eve. And I say eve because it's evening somewhere, isn't it? So a little semi-morning thoughts for me. I dare you to ask yourself the question, and I really dare you this. If you had done a reprehensible thing, if you had done something that you knew was beyond your spiritual self, if you had done something that you know was immoral or wrong, and I'm sure all of us to certain degrees have done something like this one way or another. But if you knew you had done this, and if your enemy, your opponent, who we all know sits on the sidelines waiting and observing, they're waiting for you to make the fatal mistake of ever having had made a mistake. If they're sitting around and just watching you, we all know people like this. We all have enemies. We all have that person. We all have that person in our lives that doesn't do much to avoid the consequences of having done anything, to avoid the consequences of having done an act, any kind of act. And if you know they're waiting, right? Again, I'm going to repeat myself. If you know that there's someone sitting on the sidelines as we speak right now, and they're waiting for you to fall, they're waiting for you to make the fatal mistake of having made a mistake, of having acted boldly and bravely in life, having flung yourself into the mouth of darkness. And they've been waiting for you to not, in fact, come out unscathed. They've been waiting for you to fall into that darkness, your own darkness, that you know is wrong and you know is below you. And then that same enemy, that same person, let's say they came at you with lethal, destructive precision. And they aim the finger at you and they say, "You, Jack of Faces, you are a terrible person. Look what you've done." Out of your incessant need to act, look at what you've caused. This and this suffering, this and that wrong deed, so on and so forth. They are the the ones who cast the judgment, the wrath of society. They avatarize the societal wrath and they aim the finger at you. Most people are terrified of this, as they should be, because society can be very ruthless and brutal. But I'll tell you one thing. What happens to most people who are then put into this position, who know that they have done wrong, who are being called out on having done wrong, who have tried and largely failed, to sometimes exponentially, let's say it like that, cause darkness in the world. Well, who causes darkness in the world? It is the person who tries. It is the man in the arena. And now imagine that person sitting on the sidelines, or imagine them perhaps as several people, and they're all directing the finger at you. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done. You can't get out of that situation. You can't, unless you're a man of God. Unless you are a man of faith or a woman of faith, you cannot get out of that situation. And this is what we're seeing right now on the global stage. Because why do we call faith the great liberator? Why do we call God and the sanctimonious spirit of higher consciousness the ultimate liberator? Because it exhilarates the pursuer of faith. It frees one from the burden and the weight of their own sin, and it makes one able to go into their own punishment, into their own pain and anguish and torment and suffering and karmic return. It enables one the boldness and the bravery to stop avoiding and to begin suffering as penitence. This is why faith is the greatest lesson of our realm and the great liberator from the chains by which we have bound ourselves, the chains of our own sin, and then the chains of our own conscience. When you are a man or woman with conscience, what happens? And really listen to this. Really, really listen to this. Don't go out there and like have your, like stupid moment, whatever it is. Really, I'm trying to teach you something here. I'm trying to show you a very important thing about how the world works and why you're seeing events unfold the way they are. So again, when you are a person of conscience, yet you lack faith, when you're able to understand that you have committed dark acts, but you are too cowardly to wear your dark acts like a crown, you are no king, you are a slave, and you will be enslaved by anyone who can point the finger at you and tell you you have done terrible things. And I know you have done terrible things. I know you have caused suffering. And society would mock you and stone you for it, possibly. But that should not be the primary fear of the conscious man, of the conscientious man. The primary fear should be the journey of the soul cut short because they are now bound. And if the man is not a coward, if the man is not, in fact, a coward, he will go into his punishment and liberate himself from his enslaver. He will say, yes, I have done this terrible thing. May God forgive me. May the will of the greater good be done. And if the part of that will is for me to die, to make good on my punishments, whatever that is, he will say, I will not be enslaved. I am a child of God. Would you rather be judged by God or those disgusting enough to have the audacity to judge the children of God without being one? These are the cowards, the faithless, the godless, who rule our world today with the pretense of kinghood, yet no knightly virtue. This is why kingship is not given. It cannot be given. It cannot be earned. It is inherent. It is a divine right. Because only a person enlightened by divine virtue, divine selflessness can be emboldened to such degree to come out and say, yes, I've committed dark acts. May cosmic justice be done unto me. Come whatever may, but I will not be enslaved by the purveyors of sin. I will not be enslaved by those. I will not be leashed and walked around like some dog used to cast more darkness into the world. It traps your ego. And the mental gymnastics the common politician pulls to convince himself or herself that they're still in the game somehow, that they're maneuvering the game of life when they are like leashed dogs, is that they'll say, wait and see, wait and see. I have a plan. No, you don't. Your plan is cowardice and self survival, self serving, self worshipping, cowardly conduct, even more so when the politician is up there in years. When we're talking about someone who's 60 or 70 or 80 years old, people still strong, standing strong in the political arena. Cowardice can never be hidden. Never. When someone uses your sins against you, your darkness against you, that you have gathered during your spiritual journey, because your spirit, remember that, was once emboldened to actually act and try, and the hand of action is the hand of God. How man shakes the hand of God, how man reaches the hand of God is through the hand of their own action. And if you have tried and you have failed, impressively so sometimes, and I know some of us have, some more than others. If you are unable to find within you the things, the virtue, and the wisdom to accept your own darkness and come out and say, yes, I've committed this and this and this foul act. I've been a foul person. I've been a I've betrayed my own self. At least make that count for something. Because the man who enslaves himself, he invites another. He invites someone from the stands, from the crowd. The man who has failed invites those in the crowd to point their fingers, to direct their fingers and their laughter at them, to be like, ha ha, you failed. And that's why most men strike deals with devils. Now, if you know that you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially when it comes to recent events. Remember, if you can free yourself of your own burdens and your own sins, no one can hold them against you. If you embrace them and wear them as a crown, no matter how painful, how regressive, however humiliating it is to you in your existence, know that that humiliation is in the face of God and not in the face of a slaver who looks down on you like a dog, who waits in the shadows and does nothing with his life, absolutely nothing with his life other than waiting and prowling and observing for you to make a mistake, for you to fall. And the moment you fall, he has you. Your punishment does not come from another man. It is impossible for our punishment to come from another man. They have no divine right to cast judgment and punishment onto you. Only if you allow it. Only if you let it. And by rejecting the judgment of higher forces, let's not even say God, of higher forces, you reject your own healing and your own liberation and your own spiritual deliverance. Because you and I and many people in the higher political echelons are cowards. And the moment you beat this cowardice, the moment you understand that you are not the end all be all, that the preservation of your ego is not the highest value one can carry, is the moment you can liberate yourself. But now we are seeing world leaders, big political players, them falling to the same idiocy, to the same stupid, outdated trick that's worked for a millennia. I am not a perfect human being. You are not a perfect human being. We've all made mistakes. Who does God love? Who does God love? What does God say? He loves the one who is misaligned. He loves the one who's strayed from the path, but come back on the path. He loves them extra, added. He adds to them. He adds to their suffering and he adds to their liberation. Why? Because they've actually been in the arena. They've been in the mouth of fucking hell. What do you have to fear? Death, destruction, some sort of humiliation or embarrassment? Your whole existence is humiliation and embarrassment. The way you live your life in comparison to your highest potential is an embarrassment. It's a humiliation. Every breath you take is humiliating to your highest potential. So don't talk to me about embarrassment and humiliation. Don't talk to me about fear of physical destruction. Those things at the ultimate end are so small that they don't even matter. And a man or woman who is capable of confessing their darkness takes the first step. They are immediately unchained. They are immediately liberated. And they are given the boldness to walk into their punishment freely and with pride and dignity. I have seen the wisest men teach their children when they do something wrong, right? When they commit some misdeed, they say, you're going to go and confess this misdeed to whoever you wronged. You're going to go out there and say it in front of everyone. You're going to humiliate yourself, embarrass yourself, whatever it takes. And you need to be ready to pay whatever price there is to pay. And the child is terrified. And then the child does it. And they receive the punishment, whatever it is, be it humiliation, be it a little pat on the back, be it whatever it is, be it forgiveness. And then on the way back, the child is asked, well, doesn't this feel great? Doesn't it feel good? Isn't it a big weight off your shoulders? And the child always says, yes, it is. Now imagine if you hadn't done that, you would have had to carry this weight your whole life. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? No, it's not. And now I am no fool. I understand darkness better than anyone here. I've seen a lot of darkness in my life. I have seen incredible degrees of darkness, darkness that most people are never, ever, even once exposed to in their whole lives. I know the persistence and the temptation and the power and the influence of the dark ritual. I know that. I know the pull, the push and pull. I know both of those. I know what those temples of black opulence that I mentioned. I know what what the inner halls and the inner workings of those temples look like. I know the the mental entrapment, the vivid emotional existence that is offered by it. But when you talk about such darkness, right? When you actually really know what I'm talking about right now, you understand that once you go in, there's no way going back. And sometimes you do things to that are dark to such degree that there is no coming out of it unwounded, like unhurt, right? When you bring it to light, it stings, it pains. When you're in the dark for hours on end, when you step into the light, it burns your eyes. The purification is painful, sometimes potentially even lethal. Though I don't believe this to be the case in 99.99% of the cases, especially for the man seeking forgiveness and deliverance. But remember, forgiveness for the avoidance of punishment or penitence, that's not even called punishment, is a degenerate thought because you should strive for purification. The man should strive for purification. He should be happy in his torment and anguish and suffering. He should be happy in it. He should be happy and proud, even when no one else is proud of him, when everyone looks at you like some the back end criminal, like some terrible, disgusting, subhuman scum, whatever it is. One should be able to retain the flame of pride within themselves, knowing that they came out into the light in an effort to be purified. Yeah, you're going to be judged by others. They're going to, point their fingers as they always do. But if you need to stand true before God and only before God, no one cares what anyone else thinks because you are equal to your fellow men regardless. In the eyes of God, you're equal to your fellow men at all times. It doesn't matter if you're living under a bridge, eating rats for a living, or you live in a big mansion. It doesn't matter. In the eyes of divinity, you are. And that's it. That's enough. Just the fact that you are is enough. So why did I want to talk about this today? Is that I want to show you that the key to the liberation of humanity from the ones who are looking to enslave them, make no mistake, have no illusions. It is in your hands and mine, and it is in the hands of these politicians or figures who are in the political arena that you might cheer for or against. It is in their hands at all times. At any moment, they can come out and say, I have done wrong. Here is my confession. May divine will be done. They're free. They're liberated. They're liberated from their captors, from those looking to enslave them, but they don't do it. So make no mistake that if you're going to hear a lot of these sentiments very soon. I surmised. You're going to hear these sentiments where it says, they had no other choice. Well, what would you have done? What would you have done in their place? They had no choice. They were cornered. They were blackmailed. They were this and that, blah, 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 blah. I don't claim to be any better of a person than anyone else. I don't. But what I can do is I can admit my mistakes. I can come out and say, this was a mistake. And I have learned the art of having the ability to retain a certain happiness in my own pride and dignity as I am languishing in the torment of my own sins. But I am free regardless. The man can take the punishment by choice. And if the punishment is taken by choice, then you retain your freedom, whether you're locked away or not, because it's a choice to be locked away. That's what the coward and the slave will never understand. But if you fear enslavement, if your ego fears enslavement, you'll burn the world to avoid it. That's what we're seeing right now. The cowardice, the collective cowardice of the human race on full display, real time, live television, Ultra HD, perfect for you viewing and mine. I want you to understand this so that there are no illusions about not having a choice. The very law of nature, the very law of this world is that we all, each of us, always have a choice. We are born of choice, whether you believe that or not. So don't judge the man by the light and dark. Don't judge the man by the contents of their experience, because the contents that they have, their experience is so different from yours, right? There are two brother, and one walks a path of peace and he praises God, and then there's the other, and the other walks a path of war and destruction and sometimes praises God in his most terrible, brutal moments. Who are you to say that if they switched places, these brothers, that the one in the peaceful walk in the peaceful path, who are you to say that that brother would not fall harder than the other? Who are you to say that? That's what we're doing when we're judging others, truly judging others. You cannot judge a man for his path, but you can judge a man by the contents of his character along the path. That's what you can judge. You can judge how he reacts to the path once the path is done and finished. That is what you can judge. Again, you cannot judge a man for the path and the fate and the destiny he is given. You don't know how difficult they have it. But you can judge a man according to what they do with their inheritance, with the darkness they've inherited, and the light they have inherited. You can judge them by that. The path is when you are semi-conscious. The path is when you're reflective, impulsive. The path is when something comes at you and you react to it, and perhaps you're not prepared, you're not ready. But when the path is over, for example, Mike Tyson in his prime, he was on a warpath, but he was a victim of his own self and of his own path as much as those he victimized on his path because he was semi conscious going through it. Because he was quite literally at times under hypnosis, entranced. He was in his beastly form, his beastly aspect. But then at some point, the path was done. The path was over. And he could have cast the choice to become humbler, smarter, smoother, penitent, so on and so forth. Or he could have cast the choice and become a wreck, a degenerate, changed nothing. You cannot judge the man on the path to his fate, which is a semi conscious state. But once the reflection occurs, once man is out of the semi conscious state, but this happens at different times for different people, then by all means you can judge it. Because now he's casting a conscious choice. Do you understand what I'm saying? No one is ready for their fate. That is why their fate, if they were ready for their fate wouldn't exist in the first place. The threads of fate would not be woven by higher forces if you were ready to face your faith and fate. But you're not, and neither am I. That's why it's a semi conscious experience. You are an observer of yourself as you go through it, and you feel the full impact. You feel the brunt of whatever strikes you on your path to your destiny. But again, once that destiny is over, it's up to you to sit down and do the analytics. Reflect a little bit. Now you're fully conscious. Now you can choose what to make of that thing. And what we're seeing on the global arena is utter and total cowardice in the face of responsibility. That's what we're seeing. On all sides. Not a single man among these children, bearded children, some unbearded even, children, not a single man of God, not a single man of faith. No one makes a mistake. Nothing is a mistake. On that political arena, in those higher echelons, a mistake is impossible. There's only good and evil. Those who do wrong and those who try to prevent it. We are the good guys. Oh, they're the bad guys. No, no, no. No one makes a mistake, ever. When is the last time the word mistake came out of a politician's mouth? When talking about themselves or their interested parties. When was the last time? Take it back decades, you won't find it. We made a mistake. It was wrong of us to. Oh, no, sir. You can't stop the populism. So when you realize what kind of a disgusting world you live in, all man made, by the way, contrasted with the beauty and divinity and grandeur and grandiosity of nature, of God's creation itself, of what kind of disgusting world we live in, what kind of disgusting things we've made of this world. Remember, You might think you're a king, others might call you one, but deep down in your heart of hearts, you're either worthy of that crown or you're not. And most people are not. They call it corona, the crown chakra, or whatever these spiritualists like to call it. I don't like calling it that. That is the literal sun, the embodiment of the crown chakra in our realm is the literal sun, the corona or the crown. So the crown is an illuminator. And what happens to the human body, to the human mind that strays too close to the sun? It dissolves, it dissipates, it quite literally fuses into the air. That's what happens. In the face of ultimate highest truth, that's what happens. But what happens to the one devoid of warmth and light? They become degenerate. They become blind. Even the idea, the thought of a ray of sunshine or sunlight hurts them. They become blind, degraded, degenerate. They're huddled up in some damp fucking corner in some lost, forgotten, forsaken, begotten cavern somewhere, hiding away. That is no way to live one's life. Because the greatest suffering that one can achieve in this realm is the avoidance of the suffering that is inevitable. Remember that. The greatest suffering one can achieve in this life is the avoidance, or it is done through the avoidance of the suffering that is inevitable. And that's why also I talk about the archetypal king so much. When the archetypal king, when the image of the one who is not faultless, but the one who stands for this same ideal of cleanliness and purification and standing boldly before prime judgment. If ever we are graced with a man or presence or aura, auric field, who is able to provide this sort of light and virtue and guidance to peer into our world with such grace, if they ever do grace this world, you will look at every other man who stands before him and you will say, how did I ever even respect these 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 fools, these losers? How did I ever even engage in their political foreplay? How did I even engage with interest or any sort of exaltation or exalted state? How did I even attach myself to the child's play that is their power struggle? Because compared to that archetypal king, the image of the archetypal king, the standards are so low with the rest of these fools who have imagined themselves to hold any sort of power, in reality, children, babies, in the eyes of God, right? Babies. You will say, "How did I ever fall for this?" Because you were put into a room and you had to choose between a fool and a moron. And because you are also a young soul, you haven't seen what an adult looks like. You haven't seen what an advanced soul looks like. So you have no idea of of the energy they cast. So you imagine maturity of the spirit and the maturity of the soul to somehow be conveyed through material influence. You imagine that it's somehow conveyed by how much money someone has or how many bombs they can let loose with the click of a finger. You haven't even seen the lowliest messenger of God. You haven't seen the lowest of the low in that cast. And maybe we never will. If we keep this degeneracy up, maybe we never will. I'm not a soothsayer, I'm not a doomsayer. I am an interpreter of what goes on. The faces of humanity do not look appealing right now. I'll tell you this much, ladies and gentlemen. The faces of humanity do not look appealing at all. Children, babies. This is what I see. When I look at these people, this is what I see. I see children and I see babies. I see desperation and confusion and struggle. I see ego. It's time. I'll tell you what I think, okay? I think it's time for a change of scenery. And I hold faith that that change of scenery will come soon. But not painlessly. But the current players on the world scene, on the political arena, absolute useless idiots. Every single one of them. Don't even make me list their names. Each and every single one a misguided, poor, desperate, confused soul. My neighbor is more spiritually advanced. My neighbor lady is more spiritually advanced. And all she does is water her flowers every morning. I don't know how it'll happen, but it'll happen because it has to happen. If it doesn't happen, the reinitiation of power and influence within the within the grasp and in the hands of those truly deserving and truly influential, if it doesn't happen, then we're all going into a very dark and musty and degenerate place together. There are many kings in this world who have no crowns. Yet everyone deep down feels like they should. And there's only one force that can make it so. And that force is not God. It is his stupid children who have yet to learn that kingship is through divine right, not choice, not democracy, not through limited outlooks and philosophies and ideologies and ideas, You don't make a king, you discover one. You don't birth a king, you find one. And you follow. If you don't have the power or the boldness to lead, if you don't have it within you, the self sacrifice, or your situation cannot provide you with the role of kingship and leadership. Let's say you are a family man or woman, and you have a family to upkeep and uphold, and your responsibility is to that family first, then at least empower the ones who empower you, support that which supports you. At least achieve that. You would be doing more than most people ever in their whole lives. You don't follow because you're less than anyone. You follow because your leadership is needed elsewhere. When you can provide leadership to a larger cast of people, it means that your leadership is needed elsewhere in your relationship, in your family, with your children, so on and so forth. It's not because you're less. We all lead and we all follow. And if I were to follow anyone, I would make sure that they were leading me to a godly path. I will only follow the man who follows God and divine virtue. No one else. Think of one person in the political arena right now that you could describe that way. I can't. And that's how I don't need a prophecy. That's how I know that it is inevitable for this system to crumble down. I know it because it has all the symptoms. All the cracks are in the wall. The ship is sinking and there's no one competent enough to drive it through harsh waters. Think on that.